Crap. Alright, I think we're good. No one noticed. Come on, get out of here while we still can. Damn it all! Go! Run! Get out of here while you still can! I'm not going back in there, you heathens! Stay back! Oh, hey! Nice to see ya. Kind of bad timing, but I guess we can risk it. Hello there, you beautiful people, and welcome back to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance Forever for a bare-knuckle brawl of a Step-Stool ladder cast. And it's on the map, Badlands, and it's between a UEF and an Aeon, so it's gonna be a grand old time without wasting any more of your precious seconds. Let's go ahead and get into introducing our players, with the blue player in the north and the red player in the south. Starting in the north with the blue Aeon going first. Land, it is xRawxLegitx, and he is legitimately raw as he's starting with a first land factory. As we can move on to the second player on the other side of the map, he is a red UEF going first air for some probably delectably cheesy strats, and his name is, of course, Iruma-Kun. And with that, we have our players introduced, and we can take a moment looking at this classic map. It is, of course, Badlands. There is around 9,000 reclaim for these players to hoover up. It is a Step-Stool ladder, meaning both players are below 1,000 rating on the ladder. And of course, we have these very beautiful choke points and these hills, or plateaus, I guess is what they really are, where players can set up cheeky little artillery bases or tactical missile batteries, but they require either a cliff build or the illustrious drop to obtain. We also have these areas around the back where we're going to probably see a lot of harassment. T1 labs getting in, being able to be very, very much so a nuisance, and it's going to be a great time. Very interesting to see a first air factory start. Maybe really wants the transport to drop up onto this hill, or maybe even drop into the expansion over here that should go to xRawxLegitx, as of course that would be a pretty devastating blow if he could manage to hold on to that. Of course, that would rely on the enemy commander not moving out there as he normally does. And of course, we do need to watch how these players get on with it. No normal power generators coming out from Iruma-Kun, just relying on a double hydro rush along with some reclaim. Is that affecting his power too horribly? No, it is not. Able to get out a first bomber relatively early from Iruma-Kun, and he's going to have his second hydro finished up here in just a couple of seconds, so he's going to be doing very well on his energy budget as we watch this Scorcher fly its way across the map and then just delicately almost land on top of a mass extractor point. Instead, going to move forward and maybe with a T1 Air Scout or some other form of intel. We do in fact see a T1 Air Scout over there at the top of our screen. It was kind of hidden by the little menu up there, but that won't stop us. It is, of course, a Scorcher, the best of the T1 bombers, and probably going to be able to get some decent damage done onto engineers here in the near future. We also have our first air factory, I believe, now starting to be built for xRawxLegitx. He might be in a bit of a hard spot here if he doesn't build any anti-air, but Iruma-Kun really waffling around with the T1 bomber, not bothering to send it in aggressively. Maybe just wants to stop any potential harassment coming out from xRawxLegitx. Meanwhile, xRawxLegitx does have some harassment already out on the field. It is an Aurora and a Spirit being used very, very aggressively to kill off some reclaiming engineers. Going to get some value out of that. One engineer down, another soon to take its place in hell, and yet a third here to find its way to purgatory and live a very unfulfilled life, dying very early on. That one Aurora getting a lot of value. Scorcher comes in, kills him off, killing off a Spirit and an Aurora that had already killed off 3 T1 engineers. Kind of feels bad. But of course, he's not really losing too much. He's using an air factory to produce his engineers. It's not like those were potential tanks that were being produced. So there is a bright side to that. Both players expanding pretty well. Would say xRawxLegitx may be doing a little bit better on expansion right now, as he has managed to expand out to his closer for expansion a little bit quicker, and does have an engineer out over here grabbing these, but both of them pretty much bang on with their expansion, just taking slightly different routes to get there. T1 Bomber still rolling around, up to 5 kills, killing off mainly Auroras, mainly just going for those aggressive units. Gonna kill off a Fervor now. Very nice little early airplay. That Bomber definitely paid itself off, and especially if he can manage to get one more bomb off, and he's doing very well at avoiding this interceptor over here. Going to help him out a little bit. Unfortunately, though, will eventually go down to said interceptor. The reclaim is going to land on his side of the map, so that might be something to think about. 71 mass, not insignificant, but not too terribly useful here in the early game. Of course, it is what? That's nearing a sixth of the cost to get a T1 mass extractor to T2, so it's not, as I said, insignificant, but not the end of the world. And of course, xRawxLegitx losing those early tanks, that's an investment you don't want to lose, but he did get some APM out of Iruma-Kun and did manage to shoot down the bomber. And of course, we have an early Tech 2 rush coming out from Iruma-Kun, gonna be sitting up himself with some T2 engineers right off the bat to get himself in a good position here. Maybe even gonna try and skip the T1 phase a little bit. He does have some T1 factories building on both sides of the map. Gonna need those tanks. You can't just immediately skip to T2 unless you are in an incredibly low-rated game. These players are sniffing at the heels of... That's a weird say. Yes, sniff those heels for me. They're nipping at the heels of 1,000 at 788 and 839 respectively. Only a couple of 100 rating points away from 1,000 rating, and it's not that big of a leap. Couple 100 rating is not that difficult. It's whenever you start talking about changing from that couple 100 rating to 500-600 rating is when you have to really buckle down and get very, very invested in improving in FAF. Over here to the west, we have a bit of an engagement going on between some Aurora, Lobos, and Strikers. It does seem as though xRawxLegitx just not really having the cohesion or the unit number to contest here. So gonna have to fall back, is gonna take some losses on the retreat, but not necessarily a position where he's too worried about this force out from Iruma-Kun. Cannot really get out on the map and be aggressive with it just yet. Our red UEF player will find out relatively soon. A lot of production now going up for xRawxLegitx. Reclaim looking very, very good for Iruma-Kun at 1.3 thousand versus 412 for xRawxLegitx. That's one of the earliest ways to improve in the game, by the way. If you want to get up to 1,000-ish rating, the big things are going to be getting very focused on reclaim and making sure that you are spending your mass. A lot of people below the 1,000 rating mark have troubles with both, or they have the opposite issue of thinking that mass grows on trees. It does not. It grows in the ground, and you have to dig it out, and it's a whole process, and it's very expensive and time-consuming. Over here to the north, xRawxLegitx currently killing off some Lobos. Lobos going to get some decent damage down onto a factory, maybe even kill off some units with their straggling fire. No, not really going to manage to do so, but that's not going to result in anything significant. Neither side going for a transport to get these 4 mexes respectively on the plateaus, and that would be very useful, especially when you get a base set up over here, and if you are a Iruma-Kun in particular with T2 at your disposal, could set up a very nasty tactical missile battery and really just put the screws to your opponent. Of course, tactical missile batteries, they are expensive, and they can be deadly and hugely effective, but you do have to put in that forward investment, and that investment is not going into tanks, which is a relevant kind of thing to think about when you're playing. And of course, we have the beautiful Aeon player xRawxLegitx starting to make his way south. He has the ACU walking forward, grabbing some mass points, posturing very aggressively, has a decent little army here. Both sides have taken turns in exchanging armies on either side of the map, and now xRawxLegitx going to take his next step towards victory and trying to get some damage done onto Iruma-Kun. Iruma-Kun and xRawxLegitx sitting on no upgrades on the commanders as of yet. We're just passing the 9-minute mark. A little bit of an engagement now starting up here in the middle. Iruma-Kun going with this classic strategy of the UEF. Turtle or die, or turtle and die. Either way, turtles are involved, and he is building a lot of T2PD. One over here on the right flank, a line of 4 of them in the middle, a T1 PD in the middle. He's pretty much spending all of the mass he got from this reclaim field on T2 PD. But that area will be very difficult to push, so, you know, big brain think-thonk time. He is getting a lot of value right here, as we all so greatly know that PD, way better than units, and of course that is an indisputable fact. And do not go into the comments and say, actually, PD sucks because it can't move, and it dies to T1 artillery. All of them actually died at T1 artillery pretty effectively. All of the T2 PD at least. But enough of that. We're not here to talk about effective strategies or whether these players are doing the right thing or the most optimal play. That's boring. We're here to look at pretty explosions and see these mech marines go over with their little machine guns and say, "Ha! Auroras, you're gonna die." And then the Auroras turn around and like, "My gun is bigger." And size matters in a game like FAF. The bigger you get, the better you are. And it's a robot eat robot world out there, boys and girls. You gotta be brutally efficient to have a good time in FAF, and if you're having a good time in FAF, you're not being efficient. As I've been told many a times, if you're having a good time in FAF, you should stop playing, because this is only here to induce panic and depression in all of the players who play it, and the people who truly win in a game of FAF are the ones just watching the casts. As over here to the west, we have ourselves a few pillars and flapjacks out on the field. Pillars going to be very effective. Another line of 4 T2 PD. Iruma-Kun very aware of the capabilities of T1 enemy units and saying, "No! You shall not threaten me. You shall not come for my crown. I will build defenses to last throughout the ages." And that starts with a solid base of T2PD. And he is correct. So he's just going to continue to build those, and it's going to be great. Maybe we can even get like a little bit of a statistics counter going on. How many PD does he have? He has 9 PD, coming up on almost 1 triad a minute. Can we get up to 1 triad a minute? If you go down below this video, you like, you subscribe, I think we can, and I think Iruma-Kun is our man to make it happen. Meanwhile, the Aeon player being oh so boring, xRawxLegitx playing the game as maybe it was intended to be played by throwing units at the enemy instead of building point defense at his base. And of course, that means he's going to be punished, because in FAF, you are punished for attacking if your attack is not an outright win. Why? Because this is Reclaim, and Iruma-Kun already proving very good at noticing Reclaim and using it effectively. So, gonna have to keep an eye on that. These pillars getting tons of value. 10 kills on that pillar, 5 on the other. The one that died probably had a rank of veterancy, honestly. And this army has been quelled and destroyed and annihilated. Whatever other adjective that means no longer exist. You like, insert it here, just like you insert actuallys into the comments. And of course, xRawxLegitx having himself a decent army over here, but I am a little bit worried. He is going to T2 now, and he does have a lot of T2 production. Not sure he can afford it. I don't know if he's quite on the same economic level. No, he's actually ahead of Iruma-Kun. Believe it or not, T2 PD are expensive, and when you build 10 of them by 13 minutes, that's 5,400 mass you could have spent on a T3 mass extractor. So these PD, while they do make him feel safe and they do give him a sense of security, which we can't really put a number on that, can we? It's not it's not a numbers game, it's a feelings game. And right now, Iruma-Kun feels secure. And security is everything in a game like FAF. If you feel confident, if you feel secure, you will carry the day, as they always say. In the stacks of hay where they play. I'm not a rapper. Over here to the west, there is a small attack coming out from xRawxLegitx. Unfortunately, he is suffering heavily from a lack of T2-itis, and these pillars and even the flapjacks, since this army is not particularly interested in continuing moving, are going to get a lot of value here. Of course, some T2 units finally showing up on the field. We have the occasional Obsidian sitting in the back line, not doing anything, but we do have an Asylum mixed in over here, and the Asylum is the best unit in the game. You cannot convince me otherwise. Why? Because he's a little bubble boy, and he is here to drive you and your opponents insane, be it through horrible pathfinding and getting stuck on things for you, and your opponents being very upset that every single unit has an extra 3,500 HP. So, best unit because it's the most infuriating. Oh, also it can screw you. It screws the Aeon player over because we often build a bunch of these, and that 45 power a second adds up quick. When you have like, you know, 20, 30 of these, it's a lot of power. It's a lot to handle. But of course, with great power comes great responsibility. A wise man once said that. Of course, Uncle Ben, rest in peace. And oh. Man, I am all over the place, but this cast is so much fun right now, and I'm so glad to be back out of prison. I dropped the soap a few times. It was very unpleasant, but of course I made it through, and I'm stronger for it. So over here to the west, a bunch of T1 bombers coming in. There's a decent number of these beautiful, beautiful Thistle T1 AA showing up. The Asylum eats a decent bit of damage there, but a lot of units going to be going down to those Scorchers, and this is probably going to force this force over here on the west to go north and away from the enemy base, because they're just kind of outnumbered and outgunned. Pillars having 2 guns versus the 1 gun of the Aurora means that there's a lot of guns here, even though it's very consolidated, and this is looking relatively dire for xRawxLegitx. Meanwhile, over here to the east, a strong T2 force out from Iruma-Kun now threatening this eastern flank. We now have Oblivions on the other side, and Iruma-Kun has influenced xRawxLegitx to the point where xRawxLegitx has realized the error of his ways. He is not secure, and he does not have the safety that his opposition does, so therefore he must build his own T2PD. And even though in this case I think the T2PD is probably your best option, I mean, how else are you going to stop this army? But the Flapjacks are going to have something to say about it, which is going to be very unfortunate for xRawxLegitx, because as long as these Flapjacks just don't hoity-toity run right in, gonna be a very difficult position to hold for the Blue Aeon. On the western side, a large fight has broken out. A lot of units going down for the Blue Aeon xRawxLegitx, but over here, a bunch of Obsidians now showing up. The occasional Asylum making life easier means that these pillars are going to start taking massive damage. The Obsidian does very well into the pillar. It's much more expensive, so numbers-wise, as long as you get an even numbers fight, the Obsidian wins every single time. And right here you can see that army out from Iruma-Kun evaporated like water on asphalt on 100-degree heat. That is to say, quickly. Yes, it go fast. It go burr. It NASCAR fast. It go round track real quick. And of course, up here to the northeast, that forward base just completely demolished by this force out from Iruma-Kun. Iruma-Kun really using this side of the map as a sledgehammer, and he's using it to inflict dangerous damage down onto xRawxLegitx. xRawxLegitx now behind economically, where previously he was ahead. Now down here to the southwest, though, there is a large number of triads firing into a large number of units. Unfortunately, these Obsidians are going to be incredibly adept at taking down these Triads. Along with all of the Auroras, every time they're shooting Obsidians, it's actually kind of bad because the Auroras get to free fire and they're very, very good at doing that. And of course, these Obsidians don't take too much damage. With that recharging personal shield, the Obsidian can tank so much damage. And this forward T2 production base out from Iruma-Kun now gonna be slapped down, just like I was about to make a joke that I can't make on YouTube, so let's not go there. Over here to the west, it is looking bad for Iruma-Kun, but you want to know what's looking worse? This force that has managed to get in behind the base of xRawxLegitx. He's redirecting forces. There are Obsidians, there are Asylums coming up, but this is mainly a Mech Marine force on the forefront of it, kind of spearheading this attack, and xRawxLegitx is going to start losing just a little bit more as time goes on. He doesn't have map control. He got a huge win down here, needs to make sure he kills off that T2 Mass Extractor, but other than that, he needs to get some critical damage done. He needs to push in over here to the east, does detach a small force to go around the back, much like Iruma-Kun has done onto him, taking notes out of his opponent's playbook and doing very well with them. He has set up a decent fire base over here to the east to try and ward off the attacks of Iruma-Kun, but Iruma-Kun preemptively built the counter to fire bases. He built all these flapjacks. As long as he just uses them a little bit better than this and not walk them into T2 PD range, he should be in a good position here. Of course, the TMD out from the Aeon going to be very adept at this. As long as he staggers them out quite a little bit, he can stop a lot of flapjacks with not a lot of TMD. A large attack down here to the south starting to make its way in towards the main base. A lot of energy storage and the 2 hydrocarbons going down here, as well as 2 T2 mexes. That's going to be a blow that Iruma-Kun's going to be very upset with taking. The Mech Marines have been dealt with, but there's just not enough units, it would seem, over here. But then again, all of these T1 PD are getting brutally effective trades onto pillars and onto Mech Marines as this shield holds just a little bit longer and makes up for maybe the lack of units over here on this eastern side. Both sides getting some value out of fire basing, but I would think that xRawxLegitx is getting the better trade here. And with some spirits firing into this T2 Mass Extractor, you might think that eventually it would die, but unfortunately, eventually is a very long time, and I would love to see just one, even an Aurora at this point, would kill this much quicker than they're just slightly out of range. It's kind of infuriating to watch, if I'm being completely honest. Also, should I maybe... Oh, nope, they are turned on. I'm just not in a player view. And right over here to the south, we have T3 land finished up for Iruma-Kun. He is going to be abusing these Titans to the best of his ability. Unfortunately for the Titan, though, the Obsidian, I think, can trade into the Titan. I'm pretty sure mass for mass, anything can trade into the T3 and T4 units. Mass for mass, the T3 and T4 units are not as good, but they get more range usually, they get a bit tankier, they get a lot more DPS, so they are able to deal with those lower techs very effectively, and that's why you see the disparity. So if anybody comes up to you and is like, did you know that mass for mass Mech Marines will beat a GC? Yes. Unfortunately, the GC takes up much less space, and the Mech Marines have to get on top of the GC to shoot. So it's not a realistic comparison, is what I was trying to get at there. But I don't know what I'm trying to get at. This is just a mess, but I'm happy to have you here, you beautiful people, and I would be even happier if you are new to this channel, or maybe you've been around for a little while, but you haven't bothered to click that red button below. You should double check. If it's red still, click it. It really helps out the channel, and also, if you want to hit the like button, it helps, and if you're not enjoying this, hit the dislike button, or if you just hate me as a person, go for it too. If you're hate watching this, you're just as valid as any other viewer. Don't let anybody get you down for that. And over here to the east, a large number of units now showing up for xRawxLegitx. Maybe not quite as many in raw numbers as Iruma-Kun, But of course, these obsidians, very powerful and have proven a very effective tool in the hands of xRawxLegitx so far. Both sides have been knocked down economically, but xRawxLegitx has recovered maybe a little bit better, up to 93 mass a second versus the 63 of Iruma-Kun. Iruma-Kun, the first player to try and expand up towards this plateau, has a T1 engineer, could probably do with grabbing those 2 mexes. Could not hurt his current economic situation, as he is just completely faltered over here on this western flank. And this army out from xRawxLegitx gonna try and sweep around the backside of Iruma-Kun's base. If it can really get itself in here and start setting itself up for success in maybe killing off this T3 HQ, that could be huge. T3 now starting up for xRawxLegitx. That might be paused. In fact, no, it's just passively upgrading. That is going to be a bit of an issue, though, for xRawxLegitx. The Titan count is not going to go down unless he takes a horrible trade. And of course, with the Titan count being ever higher, it gets a little bit dangerous. But once you hit T3, once you get those Harbingers out onto the field, it's going to be a bloodbath. Harbingers are so great at dealing with Titans. And T1 Bombers now out on the field trying to shut down this forest. Unfortunately, Ascendants and Thistles doing their job admirably. A few units are going to go down, but that is the price you pay, the attritional damage you take when in enemy territory and when you do not have complete air control and cannot airlock your opponent. That's what you have to deal with sometimes. Over here to the east, it seems that Iruma-Kun's trying to go for an attack on maybe the production, but that may be a little bit difficult with this large army kind of just sitting here. Unfortunately for xRawxLegitx, not paying too much attention, so that army is just eating flapjack fire right now. Over here to the east, the Titans starting to be used to try and shut down this aggression coming out from xRawxLegitx, and xRawxLegitx really faltering on the number of obsidians in this forest. And once those are gone, the asylums are the only things that can maybe make this trade a little bit worthwhile. The Titans doing very well at killing off all of this. One Titan going down, but multiple obsidians have now gone down on the front lines. We also have the comm of Iruma-Kun, which does have access to e-storage and can just continuously throw out those overcharges with his overall power income. I'm sure he is not stalling. He's probably in a good spot. He is stalling in power. Never mind. That overcharge note I was making, completely useless. But as the T3 power generator finishes up, he will start being able to overcharge very quickly. More e-storage going up. That e-storage kind of destined to die here. And this forest, unfortunately for xRawxLegitx, is just going to be a huge mass dump. Already up to nearly 5,000 mass dumped on the doorstep of Iruma-Kun, and that number is going to skyrocket. xRawxLegitx still sitting on an economic advantage, but can't continue to take trades like this. If he can maybe kill off some of these T2 mexes and just set back Iruma-Kun a little bit longer, it might be worth it. But unfortunately, trading out these units that were keeping Iruma-Kun from expanding to the west may have been a mistake here, as Iruma-Kun just kind of in it. He's fighting, he's taking a lot of damage, but I don't think he's any undue threat. I think that the Titans here will eventually clean this up, and it'll be long before Iruma-Kun loses his comm to these Obsidians. Another T2 mech going down, and yet another to follow right behind that. That means that 4 T2 mechs is going down. Of course, not worth trading out an army worth nearly 10,000 mass, even if you take off a couple thousand for units that aren't belonging to xRawxLegitx there. That was a very inefficient trade, but does knock down the economy of Iruma-Kun for just a few more seconds. And if he can get up a couple more T3 mexes before Iruma-Kun can replace those mexes, that might be entirely worth it. And these players continuing to show the aggression, continuing to fight it out. There was even some mech marine harass going on over here to the west, taking out a couple of T1 mass extractors for their trouble. T2 air now finished up, and T3 air now on the way. We have T3 engineers out onto the field. Where they're going, what are they doing? They're kind of just going to a rally point over here to the east. Not sure if that's the best call right now. And we have T3 now on the way for multiple factories. Or at least they have Harbingers queued up. That might just be one of the bugs with upgrading factories. It's hard to tell. Maybe they're just paused. Is there a way to tell? Can I actually select it? No, that doesn't work. Okay, well, let the record show that I tried my absolute best, but it wasn't enough. I tried so hard and got so far, and in the end, something mattered. We now have an equal mix of Sprite Strikers and Harbingers now starting to be produced out of that main T3 factory. I think all of these are set to assist the factory, the T3 HQ, and that is a bit of a mistake. You still want Asylums, and honestly, you might still want to try and produce some Obsidians. They're still going to be useful, or even Blazes as raiding units. You don't... Either that or Control K these and get the reclaim back, but no, he decides to opt to send at least 2 of them to Tech 3, which maybe he can afford. I think he's probably doing okay economically right now. Yes, he is indeed. Let's go ahead and check on Reclaim really quick. 16,000. xRawxLegitx now taking over the Reclaim game as he has completely swept this side of the map completely clean of Reclaim. And he also has these units over here starting to set up a new fire base to be a fallback point for his units over on the eastern side. So currently, xRawxLegitx doing very well for himself. The production of Titans is never ending. Iruma-Kun takes over the Reclaim game yet again as he's getting the latent reclaim from all of these fights over here. And to the west, he's going to be able to pick up quite a bit as long as he's not stopped by the forces of xRawxLegitx. And you can kind of just see it here. xRawxLegitx on his side has 7,000 master reclaim. Meanwhile, Iruma-Kun has 18,000. So right now, xRawxLegitx either needs to just eco hard probably on his base and just try and keep up with his already increased eco over Iruma-Kun, but he's already falling behind. He's just not getting out T3 mechs nearly as quick. So his second option is to yet again get in a winning position on land. He's been later to tech up both times, but he's had better production throughout this game. So maybe he can make something happen. Needs to be careful, needs to make sure that he's waiting to have that critical mass of units and needs to make sure he's not letting his Sprite Strikers get caught out by these Titans. And the Titans are coming in. They're getting dangerously close to that very first Sprite Striker, and that very first Sprite Striker gonna be going down. Very unfortunate for xRawxLegitx. Not a cheap unit to lose, and that's 596 reclaim. So about 700 mass worth of a unit. Don't know the exact cost of a Sprite Striker. Probably should. 800 mass total. I was close. 100 mass, give or take. And of course, we are kind of getting to the point where neither side seems to have a firm grasp on how they want to close out this game. Both sides kind of struggling with the aspects of dealing with the player on the other side of the map. And we have all been there. We have all been in these situations where it's like, well, I'm not losing, but I don't feel like I'm winning. And these players are so evenly matched. In fact, they're keeping up with each other in mass income tit for tat. Despite all of the damage done onto Iruma-Kun, he's been using the extra reclaim to his advantage quite heavily, and despite the overwhelming unit production advantage for xRawxLegitx, he's just not able to keep up with the incredible tech focus coming out from Iruma-Kun, which just means they're in a bit of a stalemate for now. Of course, in FAF, stalemates do not last long and are usually broken pretty quickly. Lots of idle T3 engineers has me a bit worried. Lots of T2 power generators going up. He has T3. He's just kind of forgotten that he has all of these T3 engineers with which to, you know, do T3 engineer things. Some idle T3 land factories and then some other ones building more T3 engineers while he's not using the ones he already has. This is very much so a moment of, we have T3 engineers at home, points at the T2 engineers building T2 power. Of course, I don't think he's in a power stall right now. In fact, he has a lot of excess power. He has enough excess power to build ASF or a Strat Bomber. That's 4,000 extra power. And all of that is just a ridiculous amount of T2 pigeons. So I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Although could definitely afford to build 2, maybe 3 T3 P-Gens and then just reclaim all of these T2 P-Gens and throw them into mass extractors. But hey, who am I to judge? These players probably playing better than I would. Let's face it, I'd be dead in 15 minutes, or I'd win in 15 minutes. That's just how I play this game. I don't get to the late game. I don't get to see the cool units. I build Chrono, and if it doesn't go burr, I die, and if it goes burr, they die. As down to the south, Titans using formation move, which makes these Titans look very silly. One of the fastest T3 land units, not moving very quickly whatsoever. The land production now in full swing, and he's mixing obsidians into his build order, which is a very nice play. Also has some absolvers coming out. Not sure how useful that's going to be. Iruma-Kun not really focusing anything onto shield production. I guess it is very nice to have against those Titans. With that personal shield generator, going to be very useful to be able to use that to just kind of blap away about half of the Titan's effective HP. And now I'm having the issue of I can't see the personal shield of the Titan, but I can't see any of the shield numbers? Huh. Wonder what caused that. There's a setting. Don't know which one. But there is a setting that apparently is supposed to allow you to see those shield numbers. And sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't. I haven't changed my settings in forever. Let's see if we can find it really quick. A lot of people were asking for this, so I'm actually going to just spend some time to look for it really quick. So, life bars of attached units, use faction colorized. Is it in gameplay, maybe? Nope, it's not. It's totally in here. I just don't know where it is. Improved unit deselection. Show armament. Okay, you know what? Let's get out of here. It's not really... I'm not gonna find it, apparently. Very unfortunate, though. Wait, I can see it. The Asylum, I can see it. The Harbinger, I can see it now. What? So 700 shields is maybe a third of their HP? I don't understand you, Faf. Why? Not even a third. It's like a fourth. But a fourth of their HP going down to 700 DPS worth of Absolver DPS is pretty great. So I'm sure xRawxLegitx won't be regretting building those anytime soon. And both sides still just kind of building up. Let's go ahead and speed up the game a little bit. Neither side particularly interesting in going across the map and punching the other in the face. And both sides now have gone over 200 mass a second. And Iruma-Kun kind of leading the charge nearly at 250 mass a second now as we approach the 40-minute mark, just passing the 35-minute mark. And we have a Clink Hammer battery now built up for Iruma-Kun. Why, yes, I do Firebase. And let's go ahead and go down to normal speed. Sniper bots and absolvers definitely getting some value here with their increased range. I don't know how many sniper bots are left over. The Ravagers, though, going to get some value here as long as they're shooting at T3 units. But this large fight now taking place. Oh no, it's kind of looking like it might be a disaster right now for xRawxLegitx. He just doesn't have the raw T3 numbers. He is getting a lot of value out of these obsidians, but it's just looking a little bit dicey as these Titans just focus fire down obsidians and just kill them off with reckless abandon and very much malicious intent. The Clink Hammer's getting some value in the background there. That's a lot of T1 PD. I think that's probably supposed to be a wall, but hey, T1 PD, go burr. Iruma-Kun said hi, let the record state, or let the record show. And the Klinkhammer's slowly racking up kills. 20, 18, 15, 11. Most of that's going to be on this T1 spam. But the T3 unit count out from xRawxLegitx is looking legitimately small right now. But he is up to T3 Air, and he is kind of mass producing it. T3 Air has been achieved by Iruma-Kun, but he hasn't really put any effort into any kind of mass production. So if he gets up enough Coronas here, he's going to be just in complete air control, and then you could see a situation where 3 to 4 strat bombers just wreak havoc across the map for Iruma-Kun. I think if you build 6 strat bombers right now, you can kill off all these core T3 mexes, and that would be the majority of the economy for Iruma-Kun. I think it's only 2 to kill off that shield generator. Oh, it might be 3 for the shield generator, and then you'd need 3 each, but there's no ASF critically. Oh, now there's 1. So right now, the air aggression could be huge for xRawxLegitx. Instead, gonna be focusing on a different form of air aggression, going for mass transport. Needs to probably be a little bit careful, though, to not overbuild transports, because having a bunch sitting around is nice, but it is a lot of mass to invest in these Amari. Oh, it's not Amari. Illuminar. Who is Amari? Is Amari from Mass Effect or something? I know Asari is a race in Mass Effect, but for some reason I'm thinking there's a character named Amari. I might be wrong. Or maybe it's a brand or something. T3 scouts fly over for Iruma-Kun, who has just religiously built a lot of Klinkhammers. And a lot of PD. He's built a lot of static defense. He's consistently 50 mass a second ahead of his opposition. xRawxLegitx still not retaking these 3 mexes in the back. Could do very well with that extra increased economy from doing so, though. T3 now on the way for xRawxLegitx. Are we maybe going to see a comm drop, or is he just going for a GC rush and wants the ACU's build power be increased? Nope, gonna go for a T3 power generator. Does he need it? Maybe if he's spending all of his mass on a GC, he could need it. That's a lot of T2 transports. As the army for Iruma-Kun has just exploded. 92 Titans. This army is somewhat unassailable at the moment for xRawxLegitx. He does have some Harbingers, but not nearly enough. That GC, though, is going up quick. All he has to do is kind of trick Iruma-Kun into the idea that he doesn't have enough to deal with him, but Iruma-Kun's about to be coming in on this western flank, and unlike the eastern flank, there's not a huge fire base built up to stop a whole bunch of Titans. And Iruma-Kun may get some huge value very soon out of this 2-front attack. Gonna take a drink really quick. Stay hydrated. Ah, so delicious. That water. Of course, over to the west, the Titans now pushing in towards this 4-mex expansion. That's a bunch of T2 mexes now under threat. And even more, he could start wrapping around the backhand side here, or just push into the main base. As I said, there's not nearly enough here to stop all of the Titans on screen. And these Titans are just going through the lands, pillaging everything they can. And it's a disaster for xRawxLegitx. He's getting raw dogged right now by the Titans out from Iruma-Kun, and it is looking quite bad, and it's looking quite very much so doomed for the Blue Aeon. This GC has to be a miracle worker, because in the middle on the western side, both of them falling apart. The GC is only 2/3 done. The Titans are about to be able to just walk in and kill off the commander of xRawxLegitx. This is legit. Stakes on the line here. 40 2 minutes and counting. And these players are absolutely no closer to victory than they were at 20 minutes. But Iruma-Kun looking like he may have found the key to success. Lots of Titans does very well. The GC, I think, will finish. There's not nearly enough aggression towards the main base coming out from Iruma-Kun to just shut down that GC, even though he was definitely in a position where he could have just won the game had he sent all these Titans in. Instead, going for the economic damage, trying to get around the backside of the map, and now at nearly a 200 mass a second advantage, Iruma-Kun looking like he's poised to take this game, to make this a W in his list of replays. Let's see what this GC does. Is he going to try and use it defensively? No! He instead opts to just send the GC south. Send it to the enemy base. He's going straight towards a line of Ravagers, which maybe isn't the best call. But 5 Ravagers definitely doesn't kill a GC before the GC kills that shield and that entire base. So maybe, if he can hold over here on the eastern side against the Titan aggression, if he can prove himself a titanic force to be moved, maybe his unstoppable attack with the GC will prove fruitful. Needs to make sure he does protect it with his air, as I'm sure T1 bombers and nope, in fact, broadswords gonna be one of the first sort of responses coming out from Iruma-Kun. The Clink Hammers have already opened up on that GC, as well as the Ravagers. GC gonna fall down about 10,000 HP right off the bat. Needs to run in and immediately kill off those Ravagers. Cannot afford to just tank their damage. Focusing for some reason on a T3 engineer. That's not a problem as long as he just kills off the Ravagers. And he is gonna start doing so momentarily. The GC now falling down close to red HP. Maybe he'll get a rank of veterancy after turning around and killing off these Titans, especially if he starts tractor beaming a couple of them. The Titans getting right up on top of the GC. Not sure if that's the best option because the GC starts spinning around, and with a rank of veterancy, the GC looking like it's gonna be in a perfect position to continue here. And the Titans ring around the rosy tactic not really working out, but over here to the northeast, that is a lot of Titans. 77 Titans are about to assail this base, but there's still T1 PD. There are a ton of T2 PD in the area. There's also all of these Harbingers. This could just be a massive mass dump, and if that's the case, he still has all these T3 and T2 engineers to just build another GC. And on the other side of the map, the broadswords now starting to try and kill off this GC. It just got a second rank of veterancy. More Ravagers going up, more T3 production about to go down. The ASF and interceptors about to come in to try and stop the death of the GC. 20,000 HP is a lot to chew through even for a broadsword battalion. And now with T3 mexes going down, Iruma-Kun is slowly pushing back against this, but that's a lot of Harbingers to chew through, and that's a lot of Titans going down all on one point. They're shift G'd right there, and that's really not working out well for him. Oh no, it's a disaster, but this time it's for Iruma-Kun. He's losing the vast majority of his attacking force, and with this, he's being a little bit... this is just him being defanged almost entirely. Luckily for him, the Shift G is actually going to work out to give him a bit of an advantage. Less reclaim in that area. The GC now going to turn around, can focus down a couple more T3 mexes. If it does so, we'll hit another rank of veterancy up to 25,000 HP and still in the red HP. but now there are Ravagers spammed up over here on the western side to try and prevent this GC from pushing forward anymore. And xRawxLegitx is still massively behind economically, as there are so many T3 mexes on the field that even killing off a few of them is not quite enough for a xRawxLegitx to take the economic lead, especially after that devastating damage from those T3 Titan assault bots came across his base. And it is now starting to look like xRawxLegitx may still have a chance in this game. Would very much so like to see maybe another experimental, and stop, for the love of everything that is holy, stop building a Luminar. You don't need a Luminar, my friend. You're okay without them. GC eating a lot of Ravager fire. Oh no, is it just gonna die walking away? It very well may do so. No! The GC goes down to the Ravager fire. And that is a heartbreaker there for xRawxLegitx. Sorry about that. Had to cough for a little bit. My throat has been a bit messed up recently. But we will continue casting this game, of course. And we have ourselves a large Harbinger army now. And how the turntables have turned. 62 Harbingers versus Iruma-Kun's 20 Titans. It's starting to look like xRawxLegitx might just be able to walk across the map. He needs to be wary of this western side with all of its Ravagers, but the eastern side not looking nearly as defended. He should have decent scouting knowledge. He in fact does not, despite having T3 air, have great knowledge of what his opponent is up to. Does have the income right now to probably just spam out another GC, and that would be what I'd be going for, but maybe the mass Harbinger play is the right call here. Only time will tell, but that's a ridiculously large number of Harbingers. And he still has air control. These broadswords, they may be very good, but they are not good if they are dead. And he should still just have air control. And for shiggles, he could throw all of his Illuminar in, and they have anti-air technically, so could go for that. As Ravagers open up, the big thing here, if they have Ravagers, you full commit. You do not back down. You go in. You don't play at the edge of their range, because that's what the Ravager wants. And the Ravagers are going to be very, very poor at being able to deal with this large number of units. They're very heavily focused on dealing with one unit at a time. So xRawxLegitx needs to make his decision right now. Now is the time to be decisive. Go in, and go in hard on this play. And it does seem as though he's starting to do so. Needs to just full commit. It's win or lose. This is your play right now. If you're gonna attack on the western side, you have to full commit to it, and you just have a numbers advantage. The Titans are falling apart massively in this huge fight. Consider me ravaged. As the Harbingers come in, the broadswords are here, but the broadswords are going to be taken down by the air wing out from xRawxLegitx. And the Harbingers are continuing to make their way forward, but they need to continue moving forward. They need to keep fighting into the Ravagers. The Ravagers are heavily inefficient against this large Harbinger force, but it seems as though that this was just enough to scare away xRawxLegitx, and maybe he's correct in being scared away, but you've already committed so heavily that you need to, you have to stay committed. As I said, staying within the range of the Ravagers, but not attacking them directly is just going to cause you more pain than it could possibly achieve you. Another GC on the way. Maybe he wants to use the GC as a damage sink. Or maybe he wants to keep distracting Iruma-Kun, forcing Iruma-Kun to send everything over here to the west as he has a GC on the east. Could be a very, very tricksy Hobbit play. Tricksy Hobbitses. Unfortunately, though, he lost air control, and now Iruma-Kun sitting on complete air control, and he has broadswords and T1 bombers. As xRawxLegitx runs away with his tail between his legs, finally stops building alumnars. At this point, he has enough alumnars, and maybe before he definitely had enough Harbingers. He could have loaded all of the Harbingers up into all of these alumnar and just dropped them on top of the comm. And there's not nearly enough AA around here to stop that, so that would have been a very interesting snipe. I wonder what his original plan for the alumnar is, was, because it just seems like he doesn't have a plan for them, but he had to build them thinking about something, right? Right? Or am I just crazy? Either way, let me know down in the comments below right after you subscribe, like, or dislike. You should subscribe and dislike, because that is that's the rarest combo. I'm gonna subscribe on this video, but I also hate it. Alrighty, so we're back to a stalemate, not a stallmate. Seems as though xRawxLegitx picking up himself, getting his eco back in order, but slowly. It's been a very slow process for him. He has a GC completed. Let's go ahead and check in on reclaim numbers. 91,000 for xRawxLegitx. He is doing very good at reclaiming on his side of the map. Admittedly, anytime that a critical mass of Iruma-Kun's engineers get over here to reclaim, he gets attacked on that flank, so xRawxLegitx really trying to dissuade reclaim on that flank, but he's just turned this into a absolute gold mine. 100,000 mass to reclaim right there. Overall economies, though, it's still massively in favor of Iruma-Kun, and total mass generated is still relatively close, but that's a 70,000 mass generation advantage over to Iruma-Kun. And we're gonna speed up just a little bit more. Second GC being done is significant, but a Duke now on the way for Iruma-Kun. GC starting to walk forward. That's gonna really help with dealing with the Titans in the front. But these broadswords, what is the solution? He has built some Redeemers, but you need a little bit more than like 3 or 4 Redeemers. He has a lot more now pumping out of the factories. All right, this is a good call. Once you get up to, I would say 15, 20 Redeemers out onto the field, gonna be very, very good at focusing down those gunships. He will need to focus on the gunships. If a bunch of ASF fly over, it might be a problem. I don't know if the default focus fire for the Redeemers will focus on the broadswords. But unfortunately for Iruma-Kun, he doesn't even send the ASF in. He's gonna start focusing down the Redeemers, but the Redeemers win this fight every single time, especially with more streaming in. Some ASF out from xRawxLegitx come in for just a quick snipe onto the broadswords. They are gonna die for it, but a lot of Redeemers being in the area is gonna help out here at least a little bit. That Duke still on the way, and this attack coming out from xRawxLegitx is gonna just try and bypass the Ravagers entirely and go around the side. Yet again, still don't know why the eastern side is the blind spot for xRawxLegitx, but hey, do how you want to do. If you can get the GC into the main base, if you can get around and kill off this Duke heavy artillery installation, maybe he can make something happen there. But now with Titans showing up here on the western flank, that means that these Redeemer reinforcements are going to be completely unable to re-link up with the GC, which means new broadswords coming out are going to be a deadly threat onto this force, which just doesn't have enough AA. There's not enough ASF to come in and stop this, so these broadswords are now going to start becoming an existential issue for this army out from xRawxLegitx, which is pushing towards the east. It wants to get into this main base so terribly badly, but a bunch of Ravagers are gonna be spammed up now by a T3 engineer and a bunch of Kennels, and oh no! xRawxLegitx may have just trapped himself between a rock and a hard place. Large attack now coming out over here on the eastern side from Iruma-Kun. More Titans being used aggressively to try and stop the re-expansion of xRawxLegitx. Second GC is gonna take a while to die, but the broadsword count is ever increasing, and it's gonna latch onto that GC and really cause issues here. And that GC probably gonna go down without getting very much damage done whatsoever. If they can get in and kill off the power grid though, that could be huge. And that seems to be the play. They just need to commit. You've already lost this force. This force is already dead. Get in there and deal some real legitimate damage down on towards your opponent. The GC is buying so much time and DPS through all of this damage it is taking. But soon it will be down, and that means that these broadswords get to focus on the Harbingers. The Harbingers need to make as much as they can out of this situation, and with all of these Kennels around, that GC is going to be reclaimed real quick. The Duke does go down. The Duke will not be allowed to finish. The Ravagers will be cleaned up, but so will the force that xRawxLegitx spent all of this mass and time on. And now xRawxLegitx looking a little bit flustered. Doesn't have very much on the field. And after dumping a cool 40,000 mass on the doorstep of a player who has Kennels, it's looking real desperate now for xRawxLegitx, because he's getting caught up to in mass reclaim very quickly as this western side's getting reclaimed by T3 engineers. Iruma-Kun has been reclaiming so fast with these T3 engineers, he can't spend it all, which is a legitimately unfortunate situation because he would definitely love to get that reclaim a little bit faster. In fact, these engineers, I think, nope, they're not idle. They still have their attack, or at least one of them does still have the attack move. But xRawxLegitx in a permanent mass stall needs to get out and get some reclaim done, needs to get up some more teched up eco and re-expand this area. That's a lot of transports. What's he gonna do with them? Load up all the Harbingers and put them on the comm. It wouldn't work at this point. There's too many ASF. Even though they are kind of patrolling in a somewhat bad spot, wouldn't really catch out all of those alumni. The broadswords now being sent out to try and deal with this T2 force of engineers trying to re-expand for xRawxLegitx. And you have to ask the question, at what cost? He killed the Duke, he stopped its production, but at what cost? And now Iruma-Kun looking dominant, looking to close out this game as we crest the hour mark. Let's go ahead and speed it up just a little bit more. Broadswords on that eastern flank. Honestly, they could just be sent in and probably kill off the comm before dying. It is a dire situation indeed. xRawxLegitx opting for T3 mass fabs, as he's unfortunately kind of just forgotten about all of the mass extractors he could expand to. It happens to you though. You get in these long games, you lose your focus, you lose the ability to make the decisions that seem so simple. It's very difficult to keep up and continue to have that mental resolve when you pass the hour mark. And both of these players showing signs of strain. The Duke is being rushed up very quickly by Iruma-Kun. And xRawxLegitx seemingly out of ideas for what he can do to come out with a W. Doesn't go for another GC. Is just going to continue to expand his air grid, it would seem. Neither side deciding a strat snipe is valuable, which is interesting to me because I would have felt that would be valuable at this point. Especially at the point where you're building 16 broadswords. That is, broadswords are relatively close in cost to a Strat Bomber, I believe. Let's just check. Broadsword's 1500 mass, 2100 mass, so it's like 10 to 11 Strat Bombers. Iruma-Kun's been doing very good at scouting. He knows there's no shielding over here. So Strat Snipe would be entirely possible, but not opting for that play. And we're just going to speed up because neither side seemingly taking a definitive approach to this. Does have the artillery online. I think it's fired once, maybe. It's firing again. Where is that shell going? Can't see exactly where it's targeted, but does seem to be going center mass. And it's gonna start arcing down, going for the power grid and ASF production. And that is going to fall incredibly quickly. Let's go ahead and keep looking at that. T2 Pigeons going down. That's the first sign of trouble for our blue Aeon. The SMD also going down. I don't know if there's a nuke launcher, but if there is, that could be very significant. And the power generator line for the T3 Air HQ goes down, and I think the Air HQ is fine. But now the Air HQ is not so fine as Duke shells continue to land. And the base of xRawxLegitx falls to crumbles. His empire has turned to sand. And I think we can pretty safely say, short of a miracle, the blue Aeon player has been bested on the field of battle and the field of commerce. Let's go ahead and turn on the HUD. We can just look at the mini-map to see if anything's going on, but this Duke seems to be doing the majority of the work right now for Iruma-Kun. And xRawxLegitx is in a very difficult position. He's going for desperation plays. He's going for attack snipe. You can see it building right over here. And we can just go back to a normal view for now. Absolvers with their ridiculous range shooting at a mass extractor. 5 damage per shot. Not all that impressive. As Duke shells continue to land, hitting power generators is their main goal, it would seem. And the ASF cloud for xRawxLegitx meets up with the ASF cloud for Iruma-Kun. Neither side doing heavy micro, which means that xRawxLegitx just loses this. He had less ASF to begin with. And the TAC missile battery, don't know if he has enough power to really feed it. He does. He has the economy for it. Can these hit the ACU? They totally can. If he scouts out the ACU, he could get a kill here. The Duke shells, though, are coming in, and xRawxLegitx. Oh, wait. He's been just... Oh, no, the Duke shells are landing nearby. I'm keeping an eye on this comm, and I'll keep an eye on the tactical missile battery. If it fires, we will watch it. But this is kind of the only place to look. As the Duke is getting dangerously close. If it hits the comm, whoa! Oh no! The ACU is now down quite a little bit of HP, and as another shell comes in, he's walking, but he's not gonna be able to get away if another shell lands in 3, 2, 1, no! He's dead! And with that, xRawxLegitx bows out at the hour and almost 7-minute mark. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you to the patrons and the channel members. Join the channel membership if you want access to every cast a day early, or sometimes 12 hours, depending on how the upload schedule and how tight everything is. But of course, I am happy to be unbanned from FAF and to be making content for you all once again. Hope you liked the bit at the beginning. This is Willow, signing off.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't
I'll never slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.